Imagine for a moment that everything you've been striving for, every goal, every desire, every dream, isn't waiting for you out there in the world. It's not hidden in some distant job, relationship, or accomplishment. The truth, as subtle as it may feel, is that the real shift, the real leap, isn't external. It isn't about manipulating circumstances or forcing outcomes. The quantum leap, the profound transformation you seek, begins quietly, deeply within. Most of us live our lives chasing external markers of success or fulfillment. We think that a new city, a new partner, or even a new habit will finally change everything. And for a while it might feel like it does. But sooner or later, a pattern emerges. The sense of dissatisfaction, the subtle tension, the feeling that something essential is still missing. That's because the old self, the version of you built from fear, habit, and conditioned thought, remains intact. No matter how much you shift the outside world, the internal structures that define your reality stay the same. This is where the concept of an internal collapse becomes so crucial. To experience a true quantum leap, something inside you must give way. Not in a dramatic or violent sense, but as a gentle unraveling of limiting beliefs, conditioned fears, and attachments to who you think you are. It is the quiet, almost imperceptible letting go of the old identity that makes space for a new, aligned self to emerge. And in that space, miracles of perception, synchronicity, and manifestation become possible. You may wonder, how can something so subtle create such profound change? The answer lies in understanding the nature of reality itself. External reality is simply a reflection of your inner state. When the inner structures shift, the outer world inevitably begins to mirror this transformation. That's why two people can pursue the same goal with the same effort and experience entirely different results. One is aligned internally, the other remains bound by unseen patterns. It's not about more effort, it's about the collapse of the old, allowing a new way of being to take root. Before we go any further, take a moment to notice your own current state. Observe without judgment. How often have you tried to change something external, only to feel the same underlying dissatisfaction afterward? How often do you chase results while avoiding the inner work, the subtle introspection, the emotional and mental surrender required to truly shift? This reflection is not meant to induce guilt, but awareness, the first step toward transformation. Awareness illuminates the contrast between the old, limited self and the potential for a new, expansive self. In this journey, we will explore why the leap you seek cannot be manufactured externally, and how the internal collapse, this gentle but powerful disintegration of limiting structures, creates a fertile ground for your new reality. We will guide you to witness your old self, not with disdain, but with curiosity and compassion. You will begin to understand that every fear, every limiting belief, every attachment is not an enemy but a signal pointing toward the areas where transformation is most needed. By the end of this section, you will be prepared to step into the next phase of your journey, seeing through the illusion of external change, understanding why external efforts alone fail, and opening yourself to the internal collapse that births profound alignment. You are being invited, right now, to pause, reflect, and feel the quiet stirrings of the new self already attempting to emerge within you. Transformation is not a race. It is a slow, unfolding process. And yet, it can feel instantaneous when the old self finally loosens its grip, allowing a new reality to emerge with clarity, grace, and effortless alignment. For most of our lives, we are taught to believe that change comes from the outside. We are told that if we just earn more money, move to a different city, find a new partner, or adopt a different routine, our problems will vanish and our lives will finally feel complete. And for a brief moment, this approach can seem to work. A new job might bring excitement, a new relationship might spark joy, or a new habit might create the illusion of momentum. But underneath these external shifts, the deeper patterns remain untouched. The inner self, the architecture of thought, belief, and identity, continues to operate in the same old ways, repeating the same cycles and reproducing the same experiences. This is why so many of us experience what can only be described as temporary change. We may upgrade our environment, improve our circumstances, or achieve the goals we've been chasing, yet a subtle dissatisfaction lingers. Something still feels out of alignment. It is as if we've been moving the pieces on a chessboard without ever understanding the rules that govern the game. No amount of external adjustment can create a lasting shift if the inner structures, the beliefs, fears, and habitual thought patterns remain unchanged. Consider the contrast. One person moves to a dream city and feels invigorated, while another moves under similar circumstances and feels the same emptiness as before. Why does this happen? Because external reality reflects internal reality. If your thoughts, emotions, and identity are rooted in fear, lack, or limitation, then no amount of external change can override those internal dynamics. It is not the external circumstances that determine your experience. It is your inner state. Most people never stop to question this fundamental truth. We chase results, believing that change is something out there, something we must earn or manipulate. Yet true transformation begins inwardly. It begins with the recognition that the old self, built from conditioning, past trauma, and habitual fears, is the primary source of the struggles we experience. When this understanding dawns, it becomes clear that the pursuit of external solutions alone is an endless cycle. Every external success is temporary if the inner architecture remains unchanged. It is also important to understand the emotional pull of this illusion. Seeking external change feels productive. It feels safe. It gives us something tangible to focus on, a visible measure of progress. But it also keeps us trapped in the familiar, because we never fully confront the deeper, often uncomfortable work of self-inquiry. We avoid the subtle collapse of the old self because it challenges our identity, our sense of control, and the familiar comfort of repetition. And yet, it is precisely this internal confrontation, this willingness to face our own internal patterns, that unlocks true freedom. Contrast is a powerful teacher here. Look at your own life and notice where you may be seeking change outside yourself. Perhaps it is in relationships, hoping a partner will complete you. Perhaps it is in career or wealth, thinking a higher salary or status will finally bring peace. Or perhaps it is in habits or routines, believing that a new lifestyle or a productivity system will finally make you feel fulfilled. Observe without judgment. Each of these pursuits, while understandable, is a reflection of the deeper illusion, that the quantum leap exists externally. The truth is, the outer world responds to the inner world. When your inner structures shift, when your beliefs, identity, and emotional patterns begin to realign, the external world naturally mirrors this change. Opportunities appear, synchronicities align, and what once felt like struggle now flows effortlessly. But these results are not the cause of the shift, they are the effect. The internal collapse, the subtle disintegration of the old self, precedes the external manifestation. Without that internal work, no amount of external effort can produce true, lasting transformation. In this section, we will explore how to recognize the patterns that keep us chasing external fixes, and how to cultivate the awareness necessary to shift inward first. We will look at the stories we tell ourselves, the assumptions we hold about success and happiness, and the subtle attachments that keep us bound to outcomes. By illuminating the illusion of external change, we prepare ourselves for the deeper work, the collapse of the old self and the emergence of a new, aligned reality. You are invited now to pause and reflect. Where have you been seeking change outside yourself? What patterns of thought or belief are keeping you tied to temporary solutions? Awareness of these dynamics is the first step toward breaking the cycle. It is the opening of a door, a gentle invitation to step inside, to explore the inner landscape, and to witness the possibilities that arise when the internal collapse begins. Transformation, as we are discovering, is never about accumulating more outside. It is about dissolving what no longer serves inside. And this realization, subtle as it may feel, is profoundly liberating. Once the inner structures begin to shift, the external world, almost as if by magic, begins to align naturally with your newly emerging self. The moment we realize that true change is not external but internal is the moment the journey of transformation begins in earnest. Yet understanding this concept intellectually is only the first step. The real work lies in experiencing it, in allowing the old self, the composite of limiting beliefs, conditioned thoughts, and emotional patterns, to loosen its grip and gradually dissolve. This process is what we call the internal collapse, a quiet, powerful unraveling of the identity that has defined your life until now. The old self is like a deeply ingrained blueprint, formed over years of conditioning, past experiences, and subconscious programming. It is familiar, predictable, and in many ways comforting even when it creates pain. It resists change not because it is malicious, but because it is loyal to the patterns it has known. Fear, anxiety, doubt, and attachment are not enemies. They are signals, signposts pointing to the areas where the old identity is still holding on. To experience a quantum leap, these patterns must be recognized, embraced, and eventually released. Contrast is essential to understand this process. The old self is anchored in limitation, repetition, and control. It seeks certainty and clings to what it knows, even at the expense of true freedom. The new self, by contrast, is fluid, expansive, and aligned with the deeper currents of existence. It is unafraid of uncertainty, open to possibility, and resonant with the natural flow of life. The internal collapse is the bridge between these two states, a space where the old self dissolves just enough to make room for the emergence of the new. How does this collapse occur? It begins with awareness. The first step is to observe the thoughts, emotions, and habitual patterns that define your current identity. Notice how often fear dictates your choices, how attachment creates tension, and how repetitive mental loops reinforce limitation. This observation is not about judgment, it is about curiosity and presence. The spiritual path often emphasizes witnessing oneself, becoming a conscious observer of the mind and emotions. Through this witnessing, the cracks in the old self begin to reveal themselves. Emotional surrender is the next crucial step. Resistance strengthens the old self, acceptance weakens it. By allowing yourself to feel your emotions fully, without suppression or denial, you dissolve the tension that binds the old identity. Grief, fear, frustration, and even anger are part of this process. When met with conscious awareness, these emotions become tools for transformation rather than obstacles. They illuminate the layers of conditioning that must be released for the new self to emerge. Self-inquiry is another powerful method to facilitate internal collapse. Questions such as, "Who am I without this fear?" or "Who am I beyond this attachment?" invite you to examine the foundations of your identity. These inquiries do not seek answers in the intellectual sense. They are experiential tools, guiding the mind to expand beyond old limitations. Each question nudges the old self to loosen its hold and allows the deeper, aligned self to surface. Visualization and imagination can also accelerate the collapse of the old self. Picture yourself as a version free from limiting beliefs, fully aligned and resonant with your highest potential. Feel the energy of this new self, the calm, clarity, and effortless alignment, as if it is already real. The contrast between the old self and this vision of the new self creates tension, but in a productive way. It signals the areas within that are ready to release old patterns. By engaging with this inner imagery, you begin to inhabit the new reality at a subtle level, preparing your consciousness for its manifestation in the external world. It is important to understand that this process is not instantaneous. The internal collapse is gradual, often subtle, and sometimes imperceptible. Yet its effects are profound. Small shifts in awareness, perception, and emotional alignment ripple outward, altering the way you interact with yourself and the world. You may notice subtle changes in how you respond to challenges, how you perceive relationships, or how you interpret events. These are signs that the old self is softening, that the internal structures are beginning to reorganize. One of the most challenging aspects of internal collapse is surrendering control. The old self is deeply invested in controlling outcomes, maintaining certainty, and resisting change. Letting go can feel uncomfortable, even frightening. Yet surrender does not mean weakness, it is an act of profound courage. It is the willingness to release the familiar in order to step into the unknown, into the expansive reality of the new self. The more you allow this surrender, the more the collapse unfolds naturally, and the new alignment emerges effortlessly. Contrast remains a central theme in this process. The tension between fear and alignment, resistance and surrender, attachment and freedom is what illuminates the path. The more clearly you see the limitations of the old self, the more you can appreciate the expansive potential of the new. The collapse itself is not destruction, it is transformation. It is the gentle peeling away of old layers to reveal the core essence of who you truly are, unbound, aligned, and resonant with the deeper currents of life. Throughout this process, patience and compassion for yourself are essential. The old self may resist, falter, or attempt to reassert control. This is natural. Observe these moments without judgment and return to awareness, surrender, and inquiry. The collapse cannot be forced, it can only be invited. Each moment of conscious attention, each act of letting go, each subtle shift in perception, contributes to the dissolution of the old identity and the emergence of the new. By the end of this section, you will have begun to experience the first stages of the internal collapse. You will have an understanding of how awareness, emotional surrender, self-inquiry, and visualization work together to dissolve the old self. You will recognize that this collapse is not a threat but a necessary and liberating process, the gateway to a quantum leap in consciousness, to a reality shaped not by limitation, but by alignment, clarity, and effortless manifestation. The internal collapse is the heart of transformation. It is here that the old self yields, the new self emerges, and the inner landscape begins to reorganize itself in harmony with the life you are ready to live. This is where true change begins, quietly, profoundly, and irreversibly from within. After the profound process of internal collapse, there comes a delicate yet powerful phase: integration. The old self has loosened its grip, the limiting beliefs have begun to dissolve, and the subtle alignment of your consciousness with a higher, freer version of yourself is underway. But a quantum leap is not complete until this new self is anchored in daily experience. Integration is the bridge between insight and embodiment, between inner transformation and the external reality that reflects it. Many seekers experience glimpses of the new self after intense inner work, yet fail to fully embody it because integration is overlooked. The shift may feel fleeting, like a spark that flares brightly but quickly fades. Without conscious alignment practices, the old habits and thought patterns can quietly resurface, drawing you back into familiar cycles. This is why integration is essential. It is the process of translating the internal collapse into lived reality, of allowing the new identity to inhabit every thought, action, and moment of your life. The first step in integration is conscious attention. Your awareness is the tool through which the new self becomes anchored. By intentionally observing your thoughts, feelings, and reactions, you can notice when the old patterns attempt to reassert themselves. Instead of resisting or judging, gently redirect your focus toward the qualities of the new self: clarity, ease, alignment, and presence. Each time you do this, you strengthen the neural pathways of your expanded identity, gradually making it the default mode of your being. Another essential practice is embodiment. The new self is not merely an idea or concept. It is a living, breathing energy that can be felt and expressed. Notice your posture, your breathing, and the subtle sensations of your body as you interact with the world. Align these physical and energetic states with the inner shift. For example, if the new self is calm, confident, and expansive, carry that energy into your movements, your voice, and your daily interactions. This creates a feedback loop. As your body reflects the inner alignment, your consciousness is further anchored, and the external world begins to mirror this inner state. Visualization remains a powerful tool during integration. Picture your new reality as if it is already fully present. Imagine the relationships, circumstances, and opportunities that align with this new self. Feel the emotions, the joy, the ease, and the clarity as though it is happening now. The mind does not distinguish between deeply felt imagination and reality. By immersing yourself in these inner experiences, you accelerate the manifestation of alignment in your outer life. Energy management is also critical in this stage. The internal collapse releases old energy, which can feel disorienting or destabilizing if not consciously managed. Practices such as meditation, breath work, and grounding exercises help you stabilize and harmonize your energy. By cultivating consistent energetic awareness, you ensure that the new self remains cohesive, integrated, and resilient against old patterns or external disturbances. Contrast continues to serve as a teacher during integration. You will notice moments when old tendencies arise: fear, doubt, impatience, or attachment. Rather than being discouraged, use these moments as reminders of how far you've come and as opportunities to reinforce alignment. Each instance of conscious choice, each time you act from the perspective of the new self instead of the old, strengthens your embodied transformation. The contrast itself becomes the proof of growth, illuminating the old patterns and showcasing the expansive potential of your new reality. Integration also involves conscious reflection on relationships and environments. The external world must adjust to the vibrational frequency of the new self. Some relationships, habits, or situations that were aligned with the old identity may no longer resonate. This is natural. The process of integration includes gently reassessing these connections and making choices that support the emerging self. By curating your environment and relationships, you amplify the energy of alignment, making the quantum leap sustainable and effortless. A key aspect of integration is cultivating trust in the unfolding process. The old self often seeks control, clinging to certainty and outcomes. The new self, however, operates from flow, alignment, and resonance. Trust is the bridge between these states. By surrendering the need to force results and instead aligning with the inner guidance of the new self, you allow opportunities, synchronicities, and manifestations to naturally emerge. Alignment, once established, does not require struggle. It requires consistency, attention, and patience. Practical daily practices solidify integration. Journaling reflections on growth, setting intentions aligned with the new self, consciously choosing thoughts that reinforce clarity and presence, and dedicating time to self-inquiry and meditation all serve as scaffolding for the emerging identity. These practices transform fleeting insights into habitual states of being, ensuring that the quantum leap is not just a momentary experience but a lasting reality. Finally, integration is about living from the new self in every moment. It is not a separate state to be achieved, but an ongoing process of alignment, reflection, and embodiment. You are learning to navigate life from a place of clarity, joy, and effortless manifestation. The internal collapse has created the space, and integration fills it with the lived experience of the expanded self. As you continue to align, you will notice the subtle yet profound ways the external world begins to mirror your inner transformation. Doors open with ease, relationships flow naturally, and the sense of fulfillment you once sought externally now arises organically from within. Integration is the art of embodying the new self fully and consistently. It is the step that transforms insight into experience, thought into action, and potential into reality. By consciously anchoring the new self through attention, embodiment, visualization, energy management, trust, and daily practices, the quantum leap becomes permanent. This is the final stage before complete emergence, where the old self is no longer dominant, the new self is stabilized, and the life you are ready to live naturally unfolds around you. As we arrive at the closing moments of this journey, allow yourself to breathe, slowly, deeply, consciously. Feel the weight of what you've explored, not as information but as transformation in motion. You have not just listened to ideas, you have participated in a subtle unfolding. What began as a reflection on the illusion of external change has now evolved into a complete internal journey, a dissolution of the old self and the quiet emergence of something beautifully new. Throughout this exploration, one truth has remained constant. The quantum leap is not something you chase, force, or create through effort. It is something you allow. It is the result of a quiet internal collapse, the falling away of everything that is no longer aligned with who you truly are. You have seen how the old self, shaped by fear, control, and conditioning, has served as both protector and prison. And you felt the gentle yet powerful truth that real freedom does not come from rearranging the outside world, but from transforming the inner one. This internal transformation is not dramatic. It rarely announces itself with fireworks or noise. It is more like the changing of seasons, gradual, natural, and deeply intelligent. Leaves fall, old energies dissolve, and new life quietly begins to grow in their place. The internal collapse is simply this: the surrender of the outdated identity, the loosening of attachments, the willingness to let go of control, and the trust to allow the new self to rise. What follows that collapse is integration, the bridge between inner awakening and outer expression. Integration is where your insights become embodiment, where understanding becomes lived wisdom. It is where you begin to live as the new self instead of merely envisioning it. You practice alignment through awareness, through choosing differently, through noticing when the old patterns try to re-emerge, and instead of resisting them, you meet them with understanding. Every time you choose alignment, you anchor the new reality more deeply into your being. Trust plays a sacred role in this stage. The new self does not operate through control, it flows through trust. It listens to intuition, honors divine timing, and moves in rhythm with life rather than against it. To live from this space is to let go of the constant pressure to make things happen. It is to understand that manifestation is not a race but a reflection. The outer world mirrors your inner vibration with precision. When you trust your alignment, you no longer chase outcomes. You attract them through resonance. As you continue on this path, you will notice subtle contrasts that guide your growth. Moments of fear reminding you to return to presence. Moments of doubt calling you to deeper trust, and moments of resistance showing where more surrender is needed. These contrasts are not signs of failure, they are signs of refinement. Each wave of contrast helps you anchor more firmly into your new frequency. It is through these moments that your inner strength and clarity solidify. Remember that this journey is cyclical, not linear. Transformation moves in spirals. You may revisit old emotions or patterns, but each time you do, you meet them from a higher level of awareness. The collapse, the integration, and the alignment are not one-time events. They are ongoing rhythms of consciousness expanding and refining itself. Every breath, every decision, every act of awareness contributes to the unfolding of your new reality. There may be days when you feel the pull of the old self, when comfort and familiarity tempt you to return to the patterns you've outgrown. In those moments, pause. Remember that growth often feels uncomfortable because it requires stepping into the unknown. The old self thrives on certainty. The new self thrives on possibility. The discomfort you feel is not regression, it is expansion. You are stretching into new dimensions of being. Hold compassion for yourself throughout this process. The internal collapse requires courage. To let go of who you once were, even if that version was limiting, is still a kind of death. And every death deserves reverence. Honor the old self for carrying you this far, for surviving, for trying its best. Then gently release it with gratitude. Only through this softness can the new self fully emerge, not as an idea but as a lived embodiment of truth. From here, integration becomes devotion. Devotion to your inner alignment, devotion to your awareness, devotion to living as the new self even when no one else can yet see it. You become both the student and the teacher of your own consciousness. Every challenge becomes an initiation, every experience a reflection, every moment a choice between fear and freedom. And as you choose alignment again and again, you begin to see evidence of your inner transformation reflected all around you. Synchronicities increase. Relationships shift. Opportunities appear effortlessly. Life begins to flow not because it has changed but because you have. The quantum leap, as you now understand, was never about escaping your current reality. It was about collapsing the false structures within you that made you believe you were separate from what you desired. The leap was inward, not outward. It was the falling away of illusion and the unveiling of truth, that everything you seek already exists within your consciousness, waiting to be remembered, felt, and expressed. So as this journey comes to its gentle close, know this: you have already begun. The process is in motion, the shift has occurred, and the alignment is unfolding. Continue to nurture it with awareness, trust, and consistent embodiment. Continue to return again and again to the stillness within, because that stillness is the birthplace of every new reality you will ever create. Take a final breath. Feel the quiet power that now lives within you. The old self has dissolved into memory, and what remains is truth, clear, calm, and infinite. You are no longer chasing transformation. You are the transformation. You are no longer seeking the quantum leap. You are the leap itself. Everything begins and ends within you. And from this inner center, your entire reality unfolds, effortlessly, naturally, divinely aligned.